This video, you've probably seen it a million times. You've seen a million tweets about it. You've seen people talk about how they don't like video games anymore. And the general answer is always, just play a better game. The people who make these kind of points, they're just playing Call of Duty, they're just playing Valorant, they're just playing the most boring competitive games, and they're wondering why they don't like video games. I am not sure if I do or do not fall into this demographic. I would like to believe I don't, but maybe I do. However, I do think that my journey with video game burnout was caused less by these things and more because of my mindset. Because I did try a lot of the games that people usually tell you to try, and I didn't like them. Maybe I was depressed, maybe it was something with how I was approaching games. There could be a lot of things, and that's what this video will be about. The first half of this video is in major part about my background with video games. If you want, you can just skip to the part where I actually just start talking about the burnout bits, but I thought this was a very personal thing that I needed to talk about in these sections. Before we get to any of this, I need to tell you about my childhood. I need to tell you about how I got into video games. Back in the good old days, you know, the zeros, the 2000s, the Y2K era of things. That was 20 years ago. And I'm 21 now. Jesus Christ. The good thing about the Y2K era was that this was a golden age for gaming, for me at least. And thankfully this was the era in which I got into video games. It had to be somewhere around 2006 to 2007 when I would go to my cousin's house, and that's where he had a PC. You know, it usually was like a Windows XP or a Windows 7. It was a pretty basic thing. It wasn't anything too complicated. But you know, it got the job done. You know what I'm saying? It was one of those PCs and it was really comfy. That's sort of an aesthetic that still sticks around to me. I really love these retro kind of PCs. I remember playing Need for Speed Underground. I remember playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I remember playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City. And I remember playing Assassin's Creed 1. And I remember because it literally had just come out and he was telling me about how cool it is, this new game. There are so many stories from this era that I can talk about, but I feel like if I sit down to talk about them, I'm just going to be talking for like half an hour. The only thing I'm going to say is that what happened was eventually he got into League of Legends, so every time I used to go to his house, he's just playing League of Legends, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the most boring game ever made, why are you playing this? And this was back in like 2009, 2010, and I was young, I didn't know anything about video games. Like now I've grown up obviously, so I know better, and yeah, I mean League of Legends, it still fucking sucks, it's the worst thing ever made. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the time that I actually started playing games on my own devices. My very first gaming device was a dogshit computer which was running Windows Vista. However, it had one advantage over all the other PCs that I'd used so far. It had a flat screen monitor. Now you see, my cousin's PC had a CRT monitor. So when I had a flat screen monitor, I was like, oh, I have the better PC, because I didn't understand how PCs worked back then, because I was a stupid fucking baby. I think one of the more interesting parts of Indian culture is that we actually sell pirated games, right? Because you can go to shops and they'll sell you pirated games. So this is usually going to be like $1 or $2 of one game. Back in the day, it used to be like multiple games. So the one that my dad got for me had Prince of Persia, The Two Thrones, Need for Speed Underground 2, Shrek the Third, and a fourth game that I cannot remember. And all of these were great fun. I didn't really get to play most of them because I couldn't understand them, and one of them got stuck and I got scared and I didn't play it much after that. There were other games that I played here and there, but again, I don't really want to spend time talking about my childhood here. When things really started to kick into place was when I saw my cousin, my other cousin, this is a different cousin, he had a PSP, and I was like, ooh, I want that. And that's when I wanted to get myself a PSP. That was it. That was the deal was done. It was in. I wanted a PSP now. However, I was poor, and the PSP was kind of expensive. So when my parents went to the shop with me to get something like that, I don't know if it was just that it was too expensive or if they just didn't have a PSP. However, they ended up getting me a PS2 in what would be about 2011, so it was quite outdated by then. Now, you know, I was a bit disappointed because if you think about it, it's a PSP looks cool, a PS2 is just, it's a TV screen, that's all it is, right? But I honestly think it was actually better that way, because I think it was a lot easier to acquire games for the PS2, and it was, I think the selection of games were actually better because now I had a proper console, not a handheld. In this era, I played, what did I play? Prince of Persia, Warrior Within. I played Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which is actually what got me into video games. This was actually a game that my cousin gave me, along with a few other demo games. The demo games that I played were Tekken 4, I played some rally game, I can't remember which one though. I played Ratchet & Clank's demo, which is probably just a gateway into like a whole different sort of video games entirely. I'm so glad I did that. I also really got into racing games at this time, because I remember I used to spend, I think the most amount of time I've spent in my childhood has to be on either Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005 or Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition Remix. Both of these games I've talked about in previous videos, and that's just because of the amount of impact they've had on me. Like genuinely, I don't think anything else has affected me as much as these two games have, because I just loved them so much. They were so much fun. Like I would always like come back home from my school and I would be like, alright, it's time to play video games, and I'm gonna be playing the same games again, because when you're a kid you just don't care, you're just having fun. That's the good thing about being a kid. And then there was also that one time that my parents were shouting at each other, and I was playing Midnight Club 3 in the next room. That was a vibe, wasn't it? Anyway, the next thing that happened was that my PS2 got kind of difficult to use, so we had to throw it away. I'm kind of sad I did that, because I also gave away all my games. I could have kept them, preserved them, but I didn't. I sold them for what was barely anything at all, and now I don't have them anymore. However, what happened next was the best part, because I got my own laptop, and on this is where I really just had the freedom to do whatever I want. This is the era that's kind of hard to remember for me, because I played so many things. I think one of the main things that I played at this point was the Assassin's Creed games. I played all of them, almost. I played 1, 2, Brotherhood, Revelations, 3, Black Flag. I kind of tried Liberation, but I didn't like it as much. I also obviously still used to play a lot of Need for Speed games, and I also got into the BURNOUT games. I also really liked the GTA games. I remember I finished so many of the Call of Duties too. I finished Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1, 2, 3 and Black Ops 1 and 2. And it's one of those things where it's like, now, if I look back at that, I'm like, how did you play all of this shit? Like, how did you have the motivation and the focus to do this? Because now I could not do this at all. But somehow back then, you know, that version of me was totally fine with all this. Also, yes, there's a lot of things that I'm skipping in this video. I'm not talking about a lot of the experiences that I've had. Because honestly, in the initial version of this video, I was talking about it, and I realized that I went on for like half an hour just talking about my childhood and all the events and stories that I remember, and that sounds fun, but I also think that's for a different video, so let's leave it at that for now. But now that you know what I was like when I was 15, and I finally finished 10th grade, and I was headed into junior college, or as high school, as some of you people may call it, now you need to know what happens next. I think what happened is kind of hard to pinpoint, and I think there were multiple factors, and I think we'll be touching on these throughout the entire video. But in retrospect, what might have been the trigger point, more or less, would have been the one time that I started watching these videos that were about how for a lot of people games are supposed to be fun, and they're trying to do new things, and they're experimenting and you know, playing the game other than what the game is supposed to be played as. You know, a lot of people talk about games, they're like, oh, there's this new game, except it just holds your hands too much and you're really just telling what the game is telling you to do. And this was always interesting to me, because that's how you play games, you just do what the game tells you to. But then I realized through a lot of different things, like there were these videos on Dishonored where people are playing that in these insane ways. There was this video by Leadhead where she was talking about how Halo inspired her to think creatively as a kid. And there were these things that she talked about how she would try out these new strategies and try to mess around with the game, do things in the game that you weren't actually supposed to do. I don't even experience bugs or glitches in games because I just never break the game. I am playing the game exactly how it was meant to be played. I'm such an obedient player that I'm just never gonna break a game. And for me this became something that I became insecure about, because I felt like I was not enjoying games the way I was supposed to be enjoying them. Of course, this was probably just bullshit. I don't think this was the case. Do I feel a bit bad when I see other people having more fun than me? Sure. But in hindsight, if this is what actually caused me being at this point where I can't even enjoy games at all, maybe I was fine with how things were back then. But that happened and it snowballed into a lot of other issues. But of course, that's just one contributing factor. I cannot for sure tell you if that was the main factor. There were other factors, like, I'm not even sure what it was. I think 11th grade and 12th grade were kind of painful for me because I felt like I couldn't do it because I was studying for computer science engineering, and it was one of those things where I was like, oh, I can't do this because it's so hard, and I kind of just got out of it. And for some reason, I think it was around that time that everything started to fall apart, including my love for video games. I don't know what it was. I just didn't feel like playing them anymore. It was very slow, it was very gradual, and I didn't even realize it. And I think when 12th grade got over, at this point I was just, I lost it. I couldn't see video games the same way. I spent hours and days and months and years trying to figure out what was wrong with me. I think it might actually have just been depression. But then also I wanted to try things that I could do right now, and try things I did. My very first solution was that maybe I'm just playing the same game too many times. Because you remember Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005? I used to play that all day still. I'll just boot it up, it was like meditation. It is so ingrained in my mind. Driving through the city, just chasing the cops around, and just making the AI do funny things. All of this, everything was just such a comfort zone. It felt so good to be here, and I loved it. Or did I? That's the thing. Did I really love it? Or was this a compulsion? Did I just feel the need to do it just because I was so used to it? And maybe the only reason why I wasn't enjoying it was because I was so stuck to doing the same cycle over and over again, and I was bored out of my mind. None of this is fun anymore. This sucks. But then what's the answer? I mean, I watched a lot of these game burnout videos. As I said, these are commonplace all over the tubes of the U. When I was struggling with these things, I thought, okay, for a lot of my friends, the people around me, they like a lot of different kind of games. Why don't I just try to get into those kind of games? Maybe I'm just missing the sauce. Maybe I'm just stuck playing these AAA RPGs, and maybe if I get into those games, maybe I'll enjoy them more. I tried to play Ori and the Blind Forest, which I enjoyed quite a bit, but not enough to keep playing it, because I think the whole Metroidvania format doesn't really work for me. I played Celeste, which was actually kind of fun. I kind of like that. But it also felt like a slog getting to the end, which is surprising because I did get to the end. But I wouldn't say I had a good time doing that. I tried to play a lot of the Mario games. I tried to play some of the Donkey Kong games. I kind of tried to play Sonic. I tried to play Shantae. I tried to play Fire Emblem. I tried to play Undertale. I tried to play Metal Gear Solid. I tried to play Far Cry 2. I tried to play Getting Over It, which honestly was probably just my fault. And I think there should be a point where you're like, okay, I've tried these things. They're not working for me. So I think that's what led me into thinking in another direction, which was what works for me in video games and what doesn't work for me in video games. Maybe if I try to analyze these things, maybe then I could find the solution. Now, generally speaking, right now, I think the kind of games that I usually like to play are the ones that have a high level of detail and the ones that help you feel immersed in the world. That's probably why I really like the Assassin's Creed games and the Watch Dogs game, because I think Ubisoft puts so much effort into their open worlds and makes you feel like you live in them. This is also probably why I like the Grand Theft Auto games, and it's probably why I used to spend hours on hours modding Skyrim, and obviously not even playing 10% of the time actually playing Skyrim. Also, I'm so sorry about the dogs barking in the background. I just don't get a lot of time to record, and you just have to put up with that. I'm sorry. Now, on the other hand, I also want to talk about things that I don't like in games. I think for me, I don't generally enjoy games that are PvP. That's like the one thing I hate. I have a really bad inferiority complex, so anytime I play a game that makes me feel worse than others, that's a no-go for me. That's probably why I also don't like arcade games, and this is a very recent discovery, and it's also what led me to making this video, because we were talking about Tetris, and I was like, oh, this game sucks, but apparently everyone else likes it. And for them, what really clicks for them is the feeling of progression, the feeling of getting better at the game over time. And Well, I mean, I can't say I felt that. I just suck at everything. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I just can't enjoy a lot of games. And I think the solution to that is probably just to keep trying, to just get better at something. But I also realized like there is this pressure. This fucking dog, I hate this piece of shit. Whatever though, back to the point. The things that I don't like in games, I also don't think I enjoy a lot of JRPGs, because for them I think you have like turn-based combat and you have like these top-down views, isometric views. I don't really like them that much. But that's not to say that when I try to explore different games, there was nothing that I didn't enjoy. Especially one of my friends recommended SSX Tricky to me, which became one of my favorite games of all time. Jesus Christ, I love SSX Tricky. And this is one of those things where like, what do I even like about this game? And hey, you know what? I think it's the point where I was getting good at it. I think that was it. I think when I started off I could barely do anything, but I think the more I played, I was nailing these stunts and getting the stunts down, knowing that I once couldn't do it. It's such an empowering feeling, and I think that was when I got closer to experiencing that arcade thrill. That's when I was starting to get it. And that's what I don't understand. What worked for SSX Tricky that didn't work for something else? Other games were things like Sekiro, which is a surprising one again, because Sekiro is a game that is all about being difficult and being kind of hard to get through, but for whatever reason, I always like to get back to Sekiro. It's one of those games that like, I think for the very first time, I really want to finish a game just because it's so hard that I'll feel good when I finish playing it. It's a bit like what Celeste was for me, except I actually finished Celeste, but I didn't finish Sekiro. I also got back to playing some of the GVC Harry Potter games, which I actually quite enjoyed. I finished Philosopher's Stone, but I didn't end up playing Chamber of Secrets that much. I played Battlefield 1, which was actually one of the most amazing games that I've played, because it's such a short campaign, right? It's just like 4 to 5 hours, but it is so well written and it is such a joy to experience this for the first time. I played the Devil May Cry games. I played Devil May Cry 1, 2, I kind of tried 3, but I didn't finish it, and I tried 5. 1 was kind of good, 5 was amazing. Some of the combat in 5 is actually one of the best things ever, and the music is just so good. I love the music in DMC 5. But I do think playing DMC 2 might have actually contributed to making my burnout worse, because I finished DMC 2. Believe it or not, I actually finished that game. I have no idea how. I really like Prey as well. I think it had an interesting sort of mechanic, but I feel like the decision fatigue just got to me and I couldn't keep playing it because it feels so vast and there's so much to do and it just gets overwhelming to play after a certain point. I really like some multiplayer games as well, like Sea of Thieves was actually really fun. I really like just chilling and just hanging out in this pirate world. Kind of reminds you of Black Flag, but it has even more interactability with the world, and I always love that, and it has this sort of aspect of having to go out and explore. I love Sea of Thieves quite a bit. Even Lethal Company is just such a fun game. I think Lethal Company was just perfect as a multiplayer co-op game because it makes you feel like you're actually there in a 3D space with your friends, and I don't know how to explain it, but Lethal Company is one of the best games that I've ever played. I even played Steins Gate, the visual novel, which surprisingly I've played so many times because just... I'm not talking about Steins Gate, come on, let's be honest. I played Mafia Definitive Edition, which again is just such a fun story to play through. I love Mafia 2, and Mafia Definitive Edition lived up to that hype, I think. I tried to get into some MMOs as well. I think I tried to play Guild Wars 2 and Final Fantasy 14, but the thing about MMOs is they feel extremely lonely to play. Like, the main reason why I want to play MMOs is so I can get friends, but they don't seem as friendly as I thought they would. And I tried a few different ones, like I tried old school RuneScape as well. I'm not sure, I'm just really bad at MMOs, I think. I don't know why. I finished both of the Spider-Man PS4 games that got ported to PC eventually, and those were pretty fun to play actually. Those are one of the very few games that I actually was able to finish pretty quickly because of how simple they were, I think. And, well, I love Spider-Man. That's probably the main reason why I was able to do that. I also really like the Doom games. Doom Eternal especially was just such a blast to play through. And you know, like, talking about these games now for this video, it makes me realize I did enjoy quite a few games along the way. It's just, in my head, I feel like I haven't been playing games, but when I look back at it, I did play a fair few games. It's just not as much as I wish I did. But now I think you have a general understanding of what kind of a person I am. So I think we can move on to the next stage. So I've spent all these years trying to get back into video games. And the way I tried to do that was that I tried to push myself outside of my comfort zone. But there were moments when I thought, what if the reason why I'm not enjoying games is that I'm forcing myself to like games now? What if it's because I'm trying all these new games that I don't really want to try, but I'm doing them because I think maybe I end up liking them? Maybe that's why I don't like them that much. Maybe what I want to do instead is just spend my time playing the same games that I like. I mean, that's fun, right? Why don't I do that? But the problem there is that when I do play these games, I don't really know if I enjoyed them. Sometimes, yeah. Other times, it feels like it was compulsion. I talked about that earlier, and I don't know. What even is fun? What is enjoyment? What does being happy feel like? Which is why lately I've been considering more and more that maybe it's not video games that's a problem. Maybe I'm just depressed. That's definitely an option, isn't it? I didn't want to accept that. I mean, I don't want to accept that maybe games just are not in fun for me anymore. But I also had to deal with that problem where I was stuck in this comfort zone. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. But then I was also seeing people around me that love different kinds of game, and I wanted to have that same kind of fun. But that was so difficult, I just couldn't have that kind of fun. Because there's games like these Metroidvanias, there's games with customization system, there's arcade games. I'm describing so much of what is an integral part of most video games out there. You may or may not have noticed the pattern by now. When it comes to things I hate in games, I seem to hate 90% of things about video games. And what that leads me to believe, what if I just don't like video games? I think I had this extreme FOMO from seeing people around me playing games in different ways and playing different games and not enjoying the same things that I do. And I felt like I was missing out, that I had to keep up with them. So I got obsessed with two things. I got obsessed with playing games the right way, and I got obsessed with playing the games that others are playing and having fun the same way as them. You can see how this spiraled out into me just losing my passion for games. Another point that I can't think of where to add in this video is something that I watched about 3 days ago, was this video about decisions in games. And this was actually kind of insightful because I feel like I understand a lot of the things that were talked about in this video. Like I talked about how I hate turn-based games, I hate a lot of games that have customization and these things. And that's because of decision fatigue, which is a very good point, but I won't talk about it here because I think that video actually explains it so well that I'll just be parroting points. But all I'll say is that if this is something that bothers you, then definitely go check that video out. When I said that I really like games that make me feel like I'm part of the world, that let me explore and have fun in the game world, this coincides with something else that happened to me. In 2023, the only time I went to a party was on the 31st of December 2023, which should also tell you that it was the last time I went to a party. And there was something about this moment for me. It was something about seeing all these people, there was something about being there, seeing people dancing, having fun. I was enjoying it. I was having fun. I was really happy. And that made me realize, what if the reason why I really like games that feel realistic, that are not cartoony, that are not video gamey, that are realistic and let me feel part of the world, is because I want to go outside? What if I just want to travel? If that's what I want from life. And I think that was worth exploring further. Because every time I do go outside, at least on my own, at least when I'm doing something I want to be doing, I sometimes end up having fun. Most of the times, I would rather stay home. But sometimes, some rare few times, I like going outside. I love the feeling of being outside. There's something about seeing all these things around you, because the world is beautiful. There's so much out there. You can just take a look at anything around you, you can just think about it for a moment. And it's so fascinating. I mean, a building. How did people build it? How much effort went into this? A tree. What goes on? Like, nature is beautiful. I mean, holy shit. I sound like a junkie. I sound like I'm going insane, but oh man, our world is beautiful, isn't it? Another aspect that I really like in games is voice chat. I really liked Lethal Company. I really like Grand Theft Auto RP because it makes me feel like I'm talking to people. Given the context of what I just said, like right before that, do you see the dots connecting? Maybe I just want friends. Maybe I just want to hang out with people outside, which is something I never did that much. Maybe I want more of that. Of course I can't get it, so it doesn't really matter. But that was something to consider. What if maybe my enjoyment from games isn't coming because what I want from life is not there in games anymore? Now of course this is a very depressing thought for me. The idea that I just don't want to play video games anymore. That's difficult to wrap your head around. Because for me that's become a part of my personality, the fact that I'm a gamer. The fact that I like games, I mean, if I don't, then what am I? Maybe I just have to accept that, maybe that's it, maybe I have to go outside and do other things, and maybe someday, when I've stayed away from games long enough, maybe I'll come back, and since my desires haven't fulfilled otherwise, I can just appreciate games for what they are. Maybe I just give up on games for a bit. Okay. Normally, the video would have ended there. If I was making this video a month ago, that's where the video would have ended. But the reason I'm even making this video is for something that happened in the last month. But to explain that, I also need to go back a few months earlier to a video I watched by Josh Drive Hayes. This video was about finding an MMO that works for you. And in this video, before he gets into the MMOs, he talks about how you can't have a single MMO that you get into. You can't think that when you get into an MMO, it's going to be a part of who you are. You can't make it a part of your identity. Because what's happening is that you're thinking, okay, I'm going to pick an MMO and I'm going to get really good at it and it's going to be my thing. That's not going to happen. You are not going to have a single thing that you're making a part of your personality. That is an insane commitment to make to yourself. And this is something that I also did a lot. When I sat down to pick a next game to play, I'd be like, oh, I kind of want something that is third person, has realistic graphics, maybe it has the art style similar to Into the Spider-Verse, and it should have a big castle, and it should have cars, and you can see how I'm actually just talking about a specific game. So when I go out to find a game, I can't find anything. There is a sea of all these different games, and I just can't pick anything. So when I play a game, I've spent about 2 days researching and trying to find something. My expectations are ridiculously high. I've already wasted so much time trying to find a game to play, and now it better be worth it. You can see why this is bad, right? I'm literally just wasting my time on trying to find a game and making sure that I enjoy the game, even though that's ridiculous. How can I know if I'm going to enjoy a game before I even actually play it? Which is why in the last month when I was watching this video, which was about the top 100 PS2 games, I found this game that I knew nothing about. I haven't even heard of this game before. It just looked interesting. So I went ahead and I played it. And oh my god, did I love it. Katamari Damacy is about rolling a ball, a katamari, and you just collect things. That's all there is to it. You just roll the ball and you collect things. This is the entire gameplay loop. This is what you do. That's it, there's not even much to say. For some reason, this is the most fun I've had in a good while. This is the first time that I was absolutely in love with the video game. I have zero complaints with this game. This is perfect. I love it. What's even more interesting is that a few days later, they announced the Rogue Prince of Persia, right? And normally a game like this would be like, whatever to me, because I told you I don't like these kind of games, right? But I was extremely excited for this one because this looked fun to me, weirdly enough. And what's even more fascinating is that the game was announced at the III Initiative, and I went ahead and watched the entire live stream. And I don't even like watching these conferences of video game trailers and stuff, but I watched this one and I ended up wishlisting around 70% of the games in this. I was excited for all these video games that I otherwise would have been like, oh, this looks boring as hell. I was excited for them. Not because I knew I was gonna like them, but because they looked fun, and I thought, hey, when they come out, I might give it a shot. I'll see how they go. That was insane to me. I've never felt that before. I did talk earlier about other games that I also enjoy, and I think this is what it comes down to. The fact that I shouldn't have to force myself to like games, and I shouldn't even have the expectation of whether or not I'm gonna like a game. I just have to give it a try. If I like it, I like it and I'll keep playing it. If I don't, there's a million other games I could be playing. That's fine. I think the problem was that I have to attach things to my personality, to my identity. So when I don't like a game, I feel like I'm not a real gamer. I feel like I should like it because I've done so much research on it. I know so many people like it. Katamari Damacy? I have no idea. Maybe people like it, maybe they don't. Later I did find out that this is actually a beloved cult classic. I did not even know about that. When I played it, to me this was just a random game that no one would care about if I didn't like it. And guess what? That's why I ended up loving it. Absolutely, this was one of the best games that I played. And I think that was the crux of the issue. The issue was my mindset, which is the worst possible answer that I can give to you. That the real issue is that you're looking at it the wrong way, and there's no answer. The answer is just, you go ahead, if a game looks cool to you, you just play it. And if you don't like it, you stop. You give it a shot, you give it a try, maybe for like an hour, you play it for an hour. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I mean, of course, how long you play it for before you decide whether you should drop it is up to you, and that is completely up to you. But you know what I've also realized is that the games that I didn't enjoy along the way, there might come a time later on when I've developed the sense to like these games. Maybe what I need to do is I need to find games that help me transition into these kind of games. In hindsight, it is just insane that I had boiled it down to, oh hey, this game, everyone else loves it, and it looks playable, so I might give it a shot. And not, oh hey, this game looks really fun to me personally, and maybe I'll give it a try. That's not how I looked at games anymore, and that's insane. Because I think at that rate, there is a good chance that I might end up enjoying everything at the end of the day. But you know what? I don't even care about that anymore. What does it matter if I end up liking these games or not? It does not matter if I don't like the same games as my friends. What matters is that there are games out there for me, and I need to find these games. And you know that thing about how people play games a lot more creatively than me, I think that is something that still somewhat bothers me, but I've kind of grown to realize that it doesn't matter that much. I mean, sure, I'm missing out a bit, but what does it matter? I'm having fun still, right? I think if I just forget about it, and if I play enough games, eventually that sort of sense will just come to me. I don't have to seek for it. I just have to keep playing, and eventually it'll probably happen. The point of playing games, the point of watching anime, the point of doing art, any of these things, is not to experience the same thing that everyone else has. The point of these things is to enjoy these things in the way that you enjoy them. Sure, you may be missing out on something that others might be enjoying, but you're not here to do that. You're here to have fun. And as long as you're having fun, it doesn't matter if others agree with you or not on that. And I agree, this is probably not the case for most other people. For most other people, I think they just have to go out there and they need to find something that they like. I don't think they have all these issues with their mindsets. But if you have gone on the same journey as me, and if you have struggled to like things, I do think you might think about whether or not you're approaching things the wrong way. Because that was definitely the issue for me. The issue for me was not that I wasn't trying the right or wrong games. It's just that I had put so much pressure on myself to like games. When I can just try games, I can have fun. If I don't, that's fine. I'll find something else. And if you just don't like games in general, you gotta ask yourself, why are you still trying? If you're not having fun, why are you still here? Is it because you think that if you don't play games, you're not a gamer anymore, and that's such a part of your personality that you just don't want to let that go? And I think that's something you should sit with. You have to think about how you've made it a part of your personality, so when you don't do it, you feel pressured to like games. And believe it or not, I think if you let go of that pressure, if you just pursue whatever else your heart wants to do, I think you might actually end up enjoying games. I think what's keeping a lot of us from enjoying games is the stress that we have attached to games. I think as we get older, we have these expectations from ourselves which are just not realistic. And I think in what is probably this weird, unfair way, the only way to enjoy things is to let go of the desire to enjoy them. I think, again, it's just the expectation. I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but it's kind of hard to hammer this point in. The fact that the only thing keeping you from enjoying it is the fact that you want to enjoy it. If you go into something expecting to enjoy it, the moment you don't enjoy it, you're gonna get bored and you'll just give up. That's not good. That's not how games are. They're not gonna be fun the whole time. There's always gonna be downtime. There's always gonna be things you don't like. It's alright. It's not who you are. Well, anyway, I've repeated myself enough times. This video is probably around 40 minutes long by now, and I'm sure you have better things to be doing. I certainly hope that you were able to take away something from this video, and I would be extremely happy to hear your experiences with your struggles with liking games, or maybe if you have any insights at all with this, because again, I'm still at a phase where I'm learning. I don't think I have the answers just yet. I think what I have is really good, but I think there's still a long way to go. And if you have any ideas, recommendations, personal struggles, anything to share, feel free to just let me know. And if you have any recommendations for games to try out, also tell me, because I think I'm at that stage where I'm gonna just go ahead and try a lot of different games. As usual, I will try to add links to things that might be helpful in the description, and I will add more links over time as I find more things that might be relevant to this. And I think a year or two down the line, I might remake this video with whatever insights I may have after having this realization. On a more personal note, this video was extremely hard to make because I had to collect so much footage, and as you can see, I kind of gave up on it and I just took a lot of footage from YouTube. And I'm sorry I had to keep the entire layout of YouTube in it, because I don't want to steal these, so I try to credit them somewhat. I don't know. I'm just doing shit. Also, college has been really hard, and the pressure from the fact that I've mostly given up on college just to do this is definitely catching up to me. So I'm hoping this video does well, because it definitely took a lot of effort, and I think it is going to attract the right type of audience if it does end up doing well. If it does, then hooray. If it doesn't, then well, let's just hope the next one's better. But I have my final exams coming up pretty soon, so I really hope I can manage to make good videos after this as well, because in the next month I'll be giving my final exams and then I'm out of college. I'm jobless. I don't know how much time I have to keep doing this YouTube stuff. I'd hope that it works out enough for me to be able to use it as a sustainable career, which sounds awful. I mean, I'm literally at like 140 subscribers right now. There is no hope as of this moment, but I have to bet everything on it. That's gonna be it though. I'm gonna go because I'm tired. Bye-bye.